a lot of these descriptions on these websites are just like, this is what static electricity is. And I'm like, that's not the question I was asking. I know what static electricity is. I'm asking why we're observing static electricity. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Atcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm your depressed piano boy, Soup.
And I'm your slightly less depressed piano boy, Renu.
This week, AT stands for Absolute Terror, or Anniversary Time, because we'll be talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion 3.0 You Cannot Redo. But before we get into that, what have we been up to, Renu? What have you been up to? It's been quite a while since we've recorded. This
my
episode
goodness.
should have been recorded quite a long time ago, but for reasons that we will get into quite shortly, it has not been recorded yet.
Well, we had the entirety of the bulk of the holidays, basically, between this and our last recording, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, so all the winter holidays.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would say I actually wrote this down so I would remember it for the podcast. But over the holiday, Thanksgiving holiday specifically, I threw out my back.
You threw out your back? Oh my god.
It was horrible. It was so stupid too. So I drove to go see my friends, and it was a very long drive. It was like a 12-13 hour drive.
Sure, yeah.
And I guess maybe like a day or two after that, I was staying over there for like the long weekend, and we were getting ready to just sit down and watch some anime, and so like me like mid like motion sitting down on the couch, so like I guess my back was like at a 45-degree angle, like my butt was about to hit the cushion. I felt a horrible sharp pain in my lower left back, and it was so bad that I couldn't even straighten back up, because that was my first instinct, was like try and stand back up, but I couldn't, and I couldn't quite reach I could either fall back on the couch or like to the floor, and I felt like it would get worse if I tried to bend further by sitting on the couch, and so I just like slowly sank to the floor.
Oh my god.
And then I eventually like straightened out by laying down on my back, but it was so bad that for basically the rest of the evening, I couldn't sit up more than like 20 or 30 degrees. And it took until because I couldn't sleep, I was just like just laying on the floor essentially. I couldn't lay on a bed or like a couch or anything, because it would have aggravated my back too much just trying to get onto any of those things. So I was just laying there on the floor, hoping that maybe laying straight would help, but it didn't. And so eventually I had to use the bathroom at like around 5 a.m. and I was like, well, I gotta get there one way or another. And so I would just like very slowly but surely kind of like use my hands slide myself.
Oh my god. You crawled to the bathroom at 5 a.m.
Yeah, essentially. Though, so I was in the living room, right? And there's like a dining room, and then the kitchen, and then the bathroom, right? So I had to make it through the two rooms to get to the bathroom. And so basically by the time I got to the dining room, I was like, okay, there's like plenty of chairs and a table here. I'm gonna try and sit up and stand up with the aid of these objects, and hopefully I might be able to manage it. And it took a couple hours, but I managed to finally get up onto two wobbly feet and very slowly make my way through the kitchen, like old person shuffling, right? When they take the little tiny half steps.
Oh my god.
That was me all the way to the bathroom, but I made it. I managed to, do everything I needed to do, and then I think I risked sleeping on the couch for until like, for a couple hours, and it was mostly okay. But essentially, I spent the rest of the holiday like recovering, and thankfully, by the time that I needed to drive back, I was able to do so with some icy hot patches that my friends got me, and some pain meds and everything. Like basically, I recovered enough to be able to make the drive back home.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and my friends were really kind. I brought Clover with me, and they helped me take care of her, and of course, they provided anything that I might have needed, and they were really sweet. And it's just, I just feel so bad. Like, I didn't do anything, I was just trying to sit on the sofa.
I was gonna say it's like it would be one thing. It's like one thing to kind of throw out your back doing like labor stuff, right? Like lifting something that's like too heavy or whatever, having improper form when you're lifting, right? Like
Correct.
That's one thing. It is another thing entirely to throw out your back just by sitting incorrectly.
I think probably the stress of like sitting for so long during the drive, probably it just built up so much in my back that,
Oh yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so I mean now I've bought like cushions for like a lumbar cushion and a seat cushion for my car, and I might get one for like my office chair and everything too, but
yeah,
those have helped. So since then, I've had to do a long drive, like I think an even longer drive over the winter holiday to go see my parents, and that was fine. I didn't throw out my back or anything. I had no back pain because the cushions really, really helped. So
proper ergonomics is super important.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I've been like trying to exercise little by little and increase my core strength so it doesn't happen again.
That's
I even had I even had a like a massage therapy appointment just to like after I had recovered some enough to like feel confident if I could walk around and everything. And yeah, the masseuse was basically telling me like different stretches and exercises I could practice so that this doesn't happen again, and also telling me about how most of his clients are people like me who sit all day for our job, and therefore that's basically what what causes all these things. He called it competitive sitting, essentially. Like we don't realize how hard it is on our bodies to just sit all day.
Oh god, yeah.
So,
it is important to have kind of like proper stuff. Like if I had the budget, like the first thing that I would do, for instance, would be to get a better like a better chair, right? Like
oh yeah, it's so
like
important.
Getting one of those like nice like Herman Miller like office chairs is like the dream, right? Because like I sit a lot. That's my primary sort of thing. But yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. I've been trying to get a little bit more exercise into my daily routine as well.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have like a little routine app that basically runs me through a morning routine, which is really helpful because otherwise I'm so bad at sticking to things. But a lot of other apps are kind of garbage. But this one that I've been using, it's called Routinery, is apparently quite good. And it comes highly recommended for people with ADHD, which that's me. I have that, right? But yeah, so I have been tweaking my morning routine, making sure it all lines up, making sure I have enough time to like do stuff. But I put a little like stretching and exercise in the first like 10 minutes of my day, which is nice,
Oh, good. That is very good.
So hopefully I can stick to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else other than throwing out your back?
Well, I mostly said that as a cautionary tale to anyone else who has a sedentary lifestyle. Even
I
if
suspect
you are
most
young,
people right now.
Exactly. Even if you're young, it's always a risk. So take care of your back, but also take care of your neck and shoulders because that's the other part of your body that takes a huge toll when you're sitting all day. So I would definitely recommend finding exercises like online via physical therapists. There's tons of videos and resources and stuff like that from trained
Yeah.
professionals who will be able to help you prevent this kind of thing from happening, which I had not done any of these exercises.
Yeah. Well, so the thing is that like it's kind of terrible, right? Like we're definitely not meant to be sitting for extended periods of time and
no.
using our hands in such a way. So like the thing is that like there's way more you need to take care of in regards to your body than you think, right? So like for a long time my primary sort of occupations were, you know, playing video games and writing and drawing and that kind of stuff. So I've done a lot of like wrist exercises to prevent like RSI and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing you have to take care of, right? It's also the rest of your body. And yeah, my posture is needless to say quite bad. It's not it's not good. If a doctor were to look at me, I think they would be somewhat disappointed, but yeah, I don't know. I've thought for a while that like probably something is like misaligned in my body. Like I probably have like some like slight scoliosis or something but I haven't been to a general checkup in so long cuz you know why. Like it's a hard time to go outside right now.
It's also a hard time to see a doctor right now.
Yeah,
so.
it's quite a hard time to see a doctor right now. Like it's one thing maybe like a couple months ago when we were you know, people were getting vaccinated and like the curve was going down, but now we have the new variant and stuff, and cases are at an all-time high again. You know, not to talk about the sort of like doom and gloom of the current day, because it is not all doom and gloom, right? Like the vaccines do work, and there are some problems, hashtag many problems with the way that our government keeps handling things, specifically in regards to schools. Like this is a thing that a lot of the people that work at the restaurant that I work at are high schoolers, right? And basically everyone has completely dropped the ball when it comes to schools, because they're like, we don't want to we don't want to implement remote learning anymore, because like we just decided that the pandemic is over when it's obviously not, right? And so as a result, schools have become this terrifying biological warfare zone where you don't know who's sick, and in many places you can't get out of school unless you have a positive PCR test and not a rapid test, even though you're more likely to get a false, you know, negative on a rapid test than a false positive, right? So it makes absolutely zero sense. And well, okay, it makes no sense in regards to a public health sort of situation, right? This is a wild thing that we've just decided is okay, where we're just like, all right, so go to school, kids. The pandemic is over. It's not over. We have a more contagious version of the virus now. What made you think it was over? Like, people only just, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've often wondered and felt horrible for the kids having to grow up during, like, having this during their school lives. Or,
I mean,
you know,
the
at a
thing
formative point in their lives.
Right, the thing is that, like, you know, we can talk about how remote learning in many ways deprives children of certain essential things about school, like being able to socialize and stuff like that. But at the same time, we have to recognize that, like, structurally speaking, we have been screwing over the school system for like 40 years, right? And so you can't turn around and say, like, you should just go back to school, remote learning is bad for kids, when the schools were not ideally made for the kids in the first place. And like that's kind of what we're seeing now, right? Where it's definitely not about the kids and about the safety of the kids and about the quality of their education, because if we cared about the quality of their education, other things about the school would have been solved a long time ago, like, you know, budgeting problems and like proper ventilation systems, right? Like, it's kind of a terrible thing, right? Where 100% the only reason that kids aren't doing remote learning right now is because it introduces the possibility that adults have to stay home to watch their kids, and then we suddenly have to, expend more resources to manage that, right? And so people want to open up so fucking badly. They're like, the economy, and it's like, don't know about that one, Chief. I really, really don't know about this one. Like, and it's terrible too, because like, if you're essentially introducing a virus that will inevitably hit like the entire youth base of your society, like that's gonna have economic impacts, which is why like it's so funny, because like it reveals that capitalism isn't even good at making money, because they only care about short-term profits. They don't care about like the long-term health of the system itself. They're just like, it's basically just a smash and grab, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is just like so depressing, right? Like, obviously, as a high schooler, I very clearly recognize that the system didn't give a shit about us. I grew up in I was very lucky to grow up in a place that actually cared about its school system and had like public funding and like was in a relatively wealthy area, right? The quality of the public education system where I went to school was really good, but I recognize that is not the same for everywhere, right? In fact, most schools, I would say, across America are not quite like that. And yes, obviously, remote learning in many ways is a detriment for many reasons, but like, you can't just send the kids to a germ box and then expect everything to be okay, right?
Their health should come first, and then their education will come second. Or however far along the priority line you want it to be.
And it's kind of crazy too, because it's not even like about the health of the kids in respect to like the parents being able to choose what's right? Like, a lot of parents are rightfully going to not want to send their kids into the germ box that is a high school. Like, let's be honest, high school is kind of gross at the best of times, right?
Yeah.
You could not pay me to go into a high school right now, right? But like, the problem is that in some places like New York, if you are absent without good reason, and they're not accepting like exposure to COVID or rapid tests as good reason, you get truancy charges, which is fucking crazy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, right? So like, it's not even something that the parents are allowed to decide anymore. It's just that the schools are deciding you have to come to school or we're gonna start pressing charges.
Wow. I've not heard of that. That's outrageous.
Yeah, that's anyway. So putting that slightly to the side, what were we talking about?
We did get a little sidetracked.
Yeah.
We were talking about the holidays.
Oh God. Yeah, tell me about
it. Yes, and I think aside from that, I spent a lot of time with Clover, and
okay, that's good.
My parents got to meet her, and that was a lot of fun. So, at my parents' house, they have a chestnut tree that grows in their backyard, and so every year they have roasted chestnuts, right? Yeah. So we have like a little fire stove and everything.
Cute. I love chestnuts.
Yeah, they're nice, right? And so, they wanted to give some to Clover, and I was like, sure. I mean, apparently they're not really toxic for dogs or anything. And so they gave it to her, and she liked it. And so then, throughout the rest of the holiday, they would just treat her with chestnuts throughout the day.
Oh my God, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. They would they would take a roasted chestnut and they would peel it for her and they give her the inside, and then she'd walk away with it and crunch it.
That's so classic, like grandparent behavior. Like, okay,
right?
So this is like a thing, right? Where like in many cases, I tend to find this especially with like Asian families, but also with with some other kinds of families, but like most prominently, right? If you are a child of like immigrants and your parents want you to have kids really badly, but if you don't have kids and you have a pet, they will spoil that child rotten. Because when I lived with my parents still, Philip would get treats just all the time. he would get so many treats. It was actually ridiculous. He would get so many treats that he wouldn't even finish his dinner. He was just like, I want treats. I'm like, no, baby.
That's bad.
No treats for you. And
Yeah.
since we've departed from my parents' house, he gets far fewer treats because we're not just gonna give him treats all the time.
Yeah, I tried to basically manage that by letting my parents know that Clover's stomach is actually sensitive, so you have to be careful what you give her. So everything you give her, you run through me, make sure so that I can tell you if it's okay or not. And second of all, I don't think I really brought that many treats. I think I brought a little treat bag, like in my treat pouch with, for walks and stuff like that. But aside from that, not really. And so she just ended up getting treated with all these like nice little healthy things, like the chestnuts or a boiled carrot or a boiled sweet potato or boiled pumpkin, like all these things that we had around the house that she could eat and liked eating. So I was like, this is fine. If you're gonna go Asian parenting on my dog and try to spoil the heck out of her, Asian grandparenting, I should say.
Yeah.
I'm fine if you do it with lots of nice, healthy things.
Yeah. That's also the thing is that like also if your parents were ever like kind of mean or cold growing up, all of that completely falls away when they become grandparents.
Yeah, so it was really nice.
Like my grandpa used to be like a super super strict parent, like a super traditional conservative like Korean father, right? To my dad. And I've never known this man to be anything but like just the kind like candy giving grandpa is just like, oh, yes, have a piece of candy, here you go. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. I actually read so my grandpa wrote an autobiography about himself, and my cousin translated it and passed it by me to do a read through, right? To do like an editing pass on it, because that's what we're good at, right? And yeah, I learned a lot because my family doesn't really talk about themselves, and I was like, I didn't know any of this shit. What are you talking about? What is this?
I want something like that for my family too. They also don't really talk about themselves a whole lot.
I mean, yeah, right? Like I'm sure, right? Like your parents never really spoke about the stuff that they do. Like this is funny because like my sometimes like my dad will just offhand say something and just expect it to like completely fly. Like he'll just be like, yeah, I remember when I lived in like Colorado. I'm like, you did what? You didn't tell me about this at all.
I didn't know you even left California.
Yeah. Well, apparently he moved to California at some point after working in like the Denver airport for a while or something.
Oh, interesting.
Or something like that. I don't 100% remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to me. But yeah, Asian families are very weird.
I feel like it's a very common story that the parent and the child might have some kind of falling out because the parent was too strict or something like that, right? But then they get brought together again because the child has their own child, and so now they're grandparents. Yeah, and so the grandparents are like, well, I want to be involved in the grandchild's life, and so then they all reconcile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I don't know what it's like for your family, but for my family, like grandparents were always like an essential part of like the child rearing process. Like I probably saw my grandma more than I saw my parents, at least until I was like 12, right?
That's interesting. Yeah.
So in many ways, like I was I mean, obviously, like they spent a lot more time with me when I was like a baby, right?
Yeah,
like just out the womb. But I don't remember any of that crap because I was like 2, right? So
yeah,
a lot of my formative memories growing up are surrounding being raised by my grandparents, right? And I think that's fairly common for Korean families, at least nowadays.
Yeah, my niece and nephew are also very close with their grandparents. So my parents and then my sister-in-law's parents, because they have been helping to raise them. So
yeah, so yeah. Anything else you've been up to?
Well, that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like your holiday season wasn't like too stressful, which is good.
No, it was very relaxing aside from the whole back issue.
I had the complete opposite. So
okay, let's go. Let's hear it.
Okay. So boy, where do I start? Okay. For the holiday season, I drove up to Oregon with Gwen, and we visited their family and stuff. And like that was all fine, right?
Okay,
yeah. Obviously it's COVID times. The pandemic is not over. It's still a little touch and go, but for the most part, we got the time off we needed. We went up, we drove up, we went to eat at our favorite places, and that was fine.
Ramen.
But then Christmas rolls around, and Gwen gets like a phone call from the work that's just like, hey, we have to inform you that you may have been exposed to COVID because one of the other MHTs, the mental health technicians, tested positive, right? So like just like one of your coworkers tested positive, and you may have been exposed. And they hadn't gotten to us about the like severity of the exposure, about whatever. It was like a coworker who at the end of the day, it's just like probably not like they didn't eat together or anything. They didn't spend any time around each other with their masks off, right? It is a mental hospital, but it's a hospital, right? So they're all
right. So there's a big enough space that probably
it's a big enough space. They're all taking the necessary precautions, right? They've got
right.
masks and stuff.
But
we decided like we don't know how serious this is. So
sure. Better be safe.
Probably instead of spending all of Christmas just kind of in the basement, because that was where we were staying, in Gwen's mom's house, in like there's a whole like basement floor with like rooms and stuff. So we're like, okay, should we just like go home? And that was we're just like, it's probably just safest just to go home, like limit the amount of exposure, if we're worried about the potential of spreading COVID. Like we don't want to be, we don't want that to weigh on our minds as we spend Christmas together, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. You don't want to feel like you're risking your family and such.
So on Christmas Day, we drove down from like we were up in we were actually past Portland. Right, Portland's at the very top tip of Oregon.
Right, yeah.
But we were actually past there because Gwen's mom lives in Washington, in Vancouver. So we drove from Vancouver down. And I don't know if you knew about this, or like or if I told you about it or whatever, but at the time, the West Coast was being hit by a winter storm, like a heavy winter storm that was caused by like a sky river, right? And so for the first time in like 15 years or whatever, right? Places like Portland were getting snow on Christmas, so they were waking up to a white Christmas, right? So we're driving down, and we drive down to like we're taking I-5. It's like the highway that runs from Oregon to California. So we're taking I-5, and we get down to about Eugene, and that's when the Maps app, the Apple Maps app, told us to take Highway 58. And we're like, that's weird, because like you can take I-5 all the way down to California, but I guess we'll trust the maps. So we drove for about an hour, and it turns out that it was taking us, and I'll explain all of this later, but like we got to a point where it was getting really snowy, and the road itself was beginning to disappear under the snow, and so we pulled off to a chain up area, right, a snow chain area, because the lights were flashing, which meant we needed snow chains. We didn't have snow chains, And we were kind of looking up, looking like further up, and we saw that it was only getting snowier. So we decided to turn around, and we actually had a little bit of trouble getting off the chain up area. So that really confirmed to us that we really needed to turn around. So we turn right back around, and we go all the way back the entire amount of progress that we've gone down Highway 58, which was about an hour. So we were 2 hours out of our way.
Okay.
And we get to we get back to the kind of like divide between I-5 and the split between I-5 and 58, which is like a little south of Eugene. And it's getting dark, right? And so what we don't want to happen is we don't want to be going through the highest elevation points in the dark, because that's where the most snow is going to stick.
Right, exactly.
Like there's quite a lot of snow coming down, right?
Right.
So we're like, oh boy, what do we do, right?
Yeah.
And so we end up booking a motel room in a little town in Oregon called Grants Pass. We book a motel room in Grants Pass, and I drive down from where we were to Grants Pass. It's about 48 minutes. And it's thoroughly dark. There's not a lot of lights on that highway, and it was snowing. So I had the most stressful drive of my life.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm like going, and I can't see anything except for the lights of the car in front of me and the car behind me, right? And that's like super stressful, but also it's like snowing really hard to the point where it looks like do you know like how in like Star Wars the like light speed like effect where like all the little motes of light are coming at you? That's basically what I was seeing, like just smacking against my windshield, right? And I don't know if my wiper fluid is all weather wiper fluid, like antifreeze. So I'm not gonna pull it to clean my windshield, because if I do, it might freeze over. I might be unable to see it. I might just die. Right?
It might make it way worse. Right.
So I'm just like, please, just hold on, right? And we go through periods where it gets snowier, and periods where it like lightens up a little.
Okay.
But like I'm just like desperately clinging onto the lights of the car in front of me for an hour, and I came out on the other side of that. And we like made it to Grants Pass, and we made it to the motel.
Wow.
And I've never been more exhausted in my life.
Yeah, that's scary.
But the problem was,
then
that we actually really hadn't eaten a meal all day.
Sure.
And it's Christmas, so nothing is open. And so we go around, we try to find out if like, you know, any of the fast food places are open, and eventually we find like a Chinese place in town, like a Chinese restaurant in town that is
always
open.
Let's go.
God bless this Chinese
Never
restaurant.
close on holidays.
So we call in an order, and they're like super busy. Like we go over and we get our food.
Sure.
And we go back to the hotel room. And it's Christmas, so like I'm just like, so I like, you know, like we get our like order. It's like $28. You know, I tip 100%, and the cashier looks like she's gonna cry, and I'm just like, I need this moment of humanity in my life, right?
That's so sweet. Oh my goodness.
Listen, if I'm not having a good Christmas, someone should, right? So we go back to the hotel room, and they didn't give us any utensils. So we might have. So I don't know if they were out of utensils or if they just forgot or whatever, but there were no utensils. But you know, whatever. At that point, we just ate with our hands. It was fine.
It's fine.
And honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't even think it was the like the sort of like high on life of being still alive. I think that was actually pretty good Chinese food.
Yeah, there you go. That's good.
But like they gave us like a 32 ounce like cup of egg drop soup or whatever, right?
Wow.
And my God, cue me eating like deep fried like marinated chicken and like rice with my hands, and I'm just like, you know what? I'll take it. This could be worse.
What a wild Christmas.
So, yeah, originally we were going to just go all the way home. right? All the way down to
Sure.
California, all the way
Yeah.
down back to the Bay Area. But obviously we couldn't do that. And so then we just spend the rest of the night just kind of like trying to sleep, stressing about the mountain pass and stuff, because it's like snowing a lot and we don't know if it's going to be clear. And then we spend about like an hour or two the next morning tracking down snow chains, because nowhere is selling snow chains in this fucking place. This town is like small, and not only is the town small, both auto zones in town had their systems down, so they couldn't even open their shops to tell us if they had snow chains.
Oh my god.
We tried like 2 other places. They didn't have any for the car that we were driving. And then what we do is eventually we just call a place in Medford, right, which is a slightly bigger city. You know, it's a little bit south. So we drive for like 40 minutes down to Medford. We pick up our snow chains. We get some like breakfast and stuff, and then we just start going down. And we're like, you know, this is the really stressful part where we're going through the highest elevation zones, and we're not sure what the conditions are going to be like, right? Luckily, the snow was pretty light. And the accumulated snow had been melted by all the traffic that passed through, right? So that's like the thing about driving in snow, is that driving in snow is kind of like the opposite of driving any other time. You want there to be as many cars as possible around you, because it just like way reduces the chance that you're going to get into some kind of like accident, right?
It breaks down all the snow and ice.
Right, because it melts all the snow. Nobody can go too fast. If you go, even if you do like kind of like spin out, there's a chance you'll like, you know, hit another car and like be able to regain your traction and stuff, right? So you know, all that was there, and was certainly a thing, right? And we pass through the highest point, and there's like cameras that we've been checking, right? There's cameras posted all along the highway so that we can see. And we get to the point we're the most concerned about, because there wasn't a camera for like a good couple miles. But luckily, like enough cars have passed through, and they've put some gravel down, right?
Okay.
So Oregon tends to put gravel instead of salt down, because it's less destructive on the cars. And we managed to pass through safely the highest elevation point that we were going to get to. Except for one like small wrench, which was as we were driving, Apple Maps kept telling us to take an exit onto Mount Ashland Drive instead of just continuing down I-5. And at this point, we're thoroughly like unimpressed. We're like, no, Apple Maps, we're not going to do that. And it kept telling us to do that, to the point where it started telling us to pull a U-turn. Except the 2 lanes, right? Like the lane that goes like north and the lane that goes south are separated by elevation. It's impossible physically to U-turn.
Apple Maps.
So Apple Maps was like, "Hey, you're going the wrong way, idiot. Do a U-turn." And we're just like, "No." There's nowhere to do a U-turn. It would be impossible. There's no way.
So, Apple Maps has some insidious intent here.
So I think what happened here was that Apple Maps tells you to go where there's the least traffic, which is not what you want. And I think the reason it kept telling us to pull a U-turn, even though it wasn't physically possible, was because the signal was not super good up in the mountains. And so it was just like, all right, this is what I'm using my limited information for. My big AI brain tells me that you should pull a U-turn. And we're like, even if we could, we wouldn't want to do that. And we can't. So we're not going to do that.
Why, yes, Apple Maps, I would love to follow your direction and careen off the side of a cliff
literally
to get to the other road.
Yeah. So that's the story of how Apple Maps tried to kill us. Anyway, we made it home safely, and you know we had some dinner and we celebrated our Christmas times, and you know what? Like it was the most stressed I've ever been in my life. And that was the holiday season. That was the most stressful holiday I've ever had. Like last year's New Year's was not amazing for me either, but this year, that holiday season was just something else. I gotta tell you.
Wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah. So I
I'm
am
glad
still.
you're okay.
Yeah, I am still alive. The new year came and went.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the cases ramping up, we didn't feel safe having a New Year celebration with our friends, so we just had an in-house one with the friends that live in our house.
Sure.
And then we, the New Year has been passing. My birthday was on the 3rd. I turned 25.
Yeah.
So I am
happy belated.
Thank you. I'm halfway through my 20s now. And I feel like I've been robbed because I didn't get to live like the last 3 years of my life. Really. Like, don't get me wrong, I love what I do. I love doing the podcast and, my freelance work and stuff. But like I'm a little bit upset that I didn't.
Well, as you get older, time passes more slowly, so it just becomes a little less consequential.
I think it might kind of be the opposite. I think time goes more quickly. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like, all that aside, like, I am not like, I'm not opposed to the idea of getting older. I've never. Okay, that's not true. When I was in like middle and high school, I was like, I don't want to become an adult. That sounds like boring. That sounds like boring adult shit. Like, having to grind 9 to 5 to make ends meet. That sounds terrible. And you know what? Looking back, you're right, high school me. It is terrible. But obviously, the ravages of time is inevitable. The inexorable march of time, etc. Right? I don't begreve getting older. I think that children are in too much of a rush to get older. But at this current point in my life, I am not upset with the person that I am, right? So,
that's lovely. That's exactly where you want to be.
Yeah. So, like, time is going to pass. I'm going to get older, and I'm going to live with that, right? I think, in many ways, our culture kind of views being hitting that like 30, like that age 30 mark as kind of a an important point in your life where you have to be made by then. But we obviously know that in right. So we obviously know that that's complete nonsense, right? Like 30 is kind of when you begin your life actually as an adult. So,
yes, you have a fully formed brain at that point. You've either started your career or you are on your way, making your way towards the career you actually want to work. And, maybe you decide that you want to get a family, or maybe you don't. Either way, there's a lot of important decisions that you make during your 3rd decade of life that people hype up the 20s a lot, but really, I think the 30s is where things come together for a lot of people. But regardless... Your own personal life is going to be different from the traditional landmark anyway. Like, people assign these arbitrary landmarks in life, like at this age you have to have children, at this age you have to have a house, and so on and so forth, and it's just all complete BS. So live your life the way that you want to, in a way that makes you feel happy and satisfied with yourself, or strive towards the things that you think will better your life.
I 100% agree. Yep. Coming into the new year, obviously, it would have been ideal if this episode came out when it was supposed to, like a week and a bit ago. But you live and you learn. Sometimes, I mean,
not everyone gets hit by an ice storm or whatever during Christmas.
Sometimes you get stuck in Oregon over the Christmas season, and you think you're going to die for a solid 2 days, and you might need a couple of days to recover from that.
I think it's so funny because on my side of the country, it was 80 degrees.
Yeah, that's like the thing, right? Is that Texas doesn't make any fucking sense. You're either in the middle of what Californians would consider a summer, or you're in the next ice age, and there's no in between. So, that is kind of like Honestly, that's like the short version. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is the short version of what my last like couple of my last couple of weeks of being alive have been like. There's so much happening in my life right now. So anyway, basically, I got home from that harrowing adventure, and I decided to write off the rest of the year. Which is why this episode is coming to you like a week and some bits late, right? So thank you for your patience. My God, thank you for your patience. I know that the podcast has been very irregularly updated recently. Yeah, boof.
It's okay.
So
I think it can be a chaotic time for a lot of people.
It is. The holiday season is chaotic for quite a lot of people for quite a lot of reasons, whether it be family related or just because being in a holiday season in the second year of a pandemic when people are fed up with being in the second year of a pandemic can be very hard. I went to the mall some amount of weeks ago to buy clothes so that I wouldn't be living with the same like underwear I've been wearing for the past 6 years. And it was an incredibly stressful event because there were so many people there.
A lot of people.
Like, you know, I'm not gonna go outside, period, as much as I physically can, right? I will go to the grocery store in the off hours, if at all possible, right?
During the holiday, I went to go visit a friend of mine, and I wanted to bring like a little house gift, and I just stopped by the store, and it was so freaking packed because it was the holiday.
Yeah, and it like. Honestly, looking at this holiday season, you wouldn't even think that it was we were in pandemic times, which is crazy. The thing is, to me, right, is that I think that it is entirely okay to do family gatherings right now if you are comfortable with it, depending on the size of your family gathering, mind you. I'm not advocating for a 60-person wedding right now, but like, you know, I think with the sort of safeguards we have in place right now, obviously tests are a little hard to come by, and the government is extremely unhelpful in that regard. But you know, everybody has the vaccine. Hopefully you have the vaccine, and hopefully, if you live kind of in the general area that I do, hopefully you're all boosted up, right? So those are important things, right? If you are triple boosted, if you're triple vaccinated, it is much more difficult for the virus to transmit off of you, and there's a chance you might be symptomatic before you're actually contagious, because that's your body recognizing that there's something wrong inside you and alerting you, essentially, right? So, you know, in that regard, it is funny because this holiday season had a lot of families kind of reuniting, and that's very sweet and all. But the funniest thing to me about that, I'm not gonna lie, is the fact that people started getting regular illnesses again.
Yeah, like the common cold.
Like people started getting the common cold again.
Had the common cold. Like she got tested and everything, of course, to make sure it wasn't, the COVID or whatever. But it was negative, and she was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I just have a cold."
Right, exactly. You're just like, I forgot colds existed because everyone's been like isolated and masking and stuff. Like, and I'm not saying like we should bring a return to the common cold. I'm just like, you know. Speaking of being boosted, I haven't mentioned this, but I am boosted now. I had a lot of trouble finding an appointment.
Oh, really?
Because people just like eat that shit up, especially for the holiday season, right? So I was looking in like mid-December, and it was booked all the way to mid-January. But I was looking around, and I happened to find it must have been like a canceled appointment or something. On the 31st, was one appointment, right? And that was the first appointment that would be open to me, other than the like mid-January ones, right? So I booked it up, and I drove like 11 miles, and I got boosted. I actually got my booster and my flu shot.
Oh, good.
And then at the same time, it's efficiency. And then
might as well.
I came home and stuff, and I spent like a day being I spent like a night feeling extremely ill. And then I woke up in the morning and I had to drive to my family's house to celebrate New Year's. But it was at least an excuse for me to get out of there as soon as possible. Just be like, I got boosted. I'm really tired. And then I
and
came
then
home.
we streamed later.
Yeah, and then we
didn't
streamed that day. Yeah. So what do I know? I'm out here. Yeah. But I'm happy for that. I haven't gotten a flu shot in years.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, yeah, if possible, I would look at getting boosted. Check the availability where you are. Obviously, I'm quite lucky in that my state and county has an abundance of vaccine and booster shots to distribute as we please.
You want to talk about an abundance? My appointment was so easy to get. I was the only one there.
Yeah, that's I've been speaking to some people with because obviously like you live in Texas. I have another friend that lives in Texas that's just like, yeah, there's so many appointments here that all I have to do is find the one that suits me the best. And I'm like,
exactly. Yeah, it was
God.
the same for me. I was like, well, I'll just pick the time that is most convenient for me.
Like, what a travesty. Honestly, right? Like what a public healthcare messaging like failure that we've gotten to a point where like this is what's happening. Like there are other countries that could use those.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's depressing, but I don't want to dwell on this too long. I want to talk about other depressing things. Oh, I forgot. Okay. I forgot completely. It completely slipped from my mind until this very moment. Okay. The other thing I've been dealing with, which is the fact that the fucking heating in my house has been off for 2 weeks.
Oh no!
I came back on Christmas Day, and the heat didn't work.
How cold is it? Has it been really cold?
I mean, it has been for California. Like the first couple of days I was back, it really didn't matter because I just spent a lot of time in Oregon, right? Okay, and Oregon is fucking freezing, right?
Sure.
And I get down here, it's like 40, it's like kind of high 40s, right, at night.
Oh, okay.
Except it started to dip a lot more, and we reached one night where it got freezing temperature.
Oh no.
And it's like, of course our heat is off in the like coldest week of the year. So our heat has been off since Christmas, and we had an appointment for the 31st, right?
Sure.
But the guy had a family emergency, quote unquote, and
Oh, whatever.
Right? I'm not going to bereave somebody who's just like, I don't want to work on New Year's Eve or whatever, but like the next available appointment was the 6th of January. Which was like, what? What?
Have fun freezing for another week.
Yeah, right? So anyway, I think we got someone out like a day or two early, luckily. And they took a look at the heating system, and they're like, oh, you need to replace this like filter part. But we also need to clean the whole thing, so we need to get the landlord's approval for that. And it was a whole ordeal, but like now the next time that they're gonna come is Monday. If you're listening to this podcast, hopefully it's tomorrow. Like we've been
So your heating is still not functioning.
Our heating has not been functioning for 2 weeks because I guess whatever company works with the insurance people is just booked all the way up, and what are they doing? What are they doing out there? Listen, come on. Like, we're literally here without heat. And I mean, like, we have 2 space heaters that one of my roommates thankfully brought from home, and they've been helping an immense amount. But also as a result of that, our electricity bill is just fucking out there this month, and it's like pain.
You should have. Do you have any electric blankets?
Yeah, we have an electric blanket, but we also the wiring in this house is fairly old, so we don't want to overload the breakers.
Dear.
So we do have electric blankets, and we do have space heaters, but that means that like the office is warm, and like one other room gets to be warm, and it's not not too bad when you're sleeping. You know, you got all your blankets and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not ideal. And I will say the next part of that is also the fact that because obviously with the rise of cases, more people are gonna have COVID, right? So some of the people at Gwen's, like the hospital that they work at, have been testing positive, right? And that's been a concern. So Gwen is like somewhat quarantining, and I'm sleeping in the office. I'm sleeping on a beanbag chair because that's just where it's the warmest.
What's happening during your holiday over there?
My winter season has been uncharacteristically problematic. is the way that I'm gonna put that.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but you sound like you're holding it together, and hopefully you'll get some relief soon.
I am. I
okay.
think.
Okay.
Anyway, we have been catching up for around about an hour now, give or take. And I think that's appropriate for the end of the year episode, quote unquote.
Okay.
Yeah. Let us talk about Evangelion, and then we'll talk about podcast stuff. And then we'll wrap up, right?
Sure.
So, Evangelion 3.0, you cannot redo. This is an interesting one to talk about, I would say, because we pretty recently saw 3.0 plus 1.0,
yeah.
and we recently talked about 3.0 plus 1.0. And moreover, it's been a good couple years since I've watched 3.0, and even more than that, my knowledge of this series is getting weirder because we watch basically one movie like every year, right? So I'm just like,
yeah,
what is happening? I'm just like trying to piece everything together. I'm just like, it's been so long since I watched 2.0.
Yeah, so for anyone who's wondering why we're covering 3.0 now, it's because we want to basically complete the set. So we did 1.0, 2.0, and then 3.0 plus 1.0. We might as well
look forward to
round it off with
next year's Christmas / anniversary episode. Who knows what we'll do then?
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, Evangelion is finished now, even though we're only just now talking about the third movie. But if we decide to do it, I think there's an interesting. Well, it looks interesting documentary on the making of 3.0 plus 1.0 that I kind of want to check out, but I don't know if that might
be interesting.
Worthy of a discussion.
I would be pretty into that. I would.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we have an entire year to think about it. That year is going to pass faster and slower than we think it's going to. But
yeah.
I think that it'll be interesting. This will be an interesting year. And we'll talk about, some of the logistical sort of housekeeping stuff later. But Evangelion 3.0 deals with the aftermath of 2.0, where at the end, Shinji triggers third impact, and then 14 years pass. We have a little time skip. And everything appears to be getting worse all the time. So basically, Gendo and Fuyutsuki are like the only members of NERV left. Misato and everyone else left to start a new organization, a new cooler club they call Ville. Which is an organization dedicated to the destruction of NERV. And then they retrieve Shinji, and he wakes up and is just like, what the fuck is going on? And they put an explosive choker on him, and then NERV kidnaps Shinji. And he has to slowly come to terms with the fact that Rei Ayanami is dead, and that she is super, super not alive anymore, and that the Rei Ayanami he sees before him is just another goop clone. But he also meets Kaoru, who helps him cope, and they do some gay piano stuff. And then they go to get some spears, and they're like, we need the spears to be able to reboot the world and stuff. But Khara was like, wait, this isn't right. The spears are the same spear. And Shinji's like, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway. And Khara was like, I don't think you should. And Asuka's like, I don't think you should do that. And then he does it anyway. And then the world ends, kind of.
Yes, it almost ends. Basically, Kaoru, Kaoru's choker, because he took it off of Shinji, explodes and then causes him to die, and he was hoping that would stop the next impact, but it doesn't, and so then basically some hijinks happen, but they managed to narrowly avoid causing the world to end again.
Again. I mean, listen, they called it near third impact. It seemed pretty third impact-y to me.
Yeah, I mean, considering the world was almost extinct.
But yes, so then Kaoru's head explodes because he took the choker of exploding.
Yes.
And then Shinji is forever traumatized. Some cool action stuff happens, and then Asuka pulls Shinji out, and they start wandering into the distance with new Goop Ray.
Yes.
And that's where it ends for like a decade, and then they have the new movie where they like start at the So you know how it goes. We'll talk about 3.0 about as much as we can. We have been talking about Evangelion for a solid like 4 years now, so I'm like deeply afraid that I will just commit to saying lots of things that I've just said before. So I try my best not to say those things again, because those are in the episodes. They're in the past. You can watch them and stuff. But yeah. 3.0 is in many ways it's funny because watching it now or watching it back then, it always kind of felt like, this is like a the boom big Evangelion movie. But watching it now in the aftermath of 3.0 plus 1.0, it feels like it almost feels like just like kind of a transition, right?
Yeah, well, to me, it felt like, back then when we watched them in order, 3.0, and I think this is what caused a lot of the fan backlash too when it came out, was that it feels quite a bit of a departure from the rest of the movies.
Yeah.
And so, having watched 3.0 plus 1.0 now, and then watching this 3.0 again, it's interesting to see what kinds of things they kind of walked back from 3.0 in the fourth movie. For example, you get a really harsh reintroduction to Misato and Shinji's relationship where it's completely flipped.
Yeah,
she hates him and treats him very coldly, but then in the fourth movie they reconcile their relationship and stuff like that. So it's just really interesting how many plot points they bring up in 3.0 that they wrap up with a lot of finality in the fourth movie. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's a very it's just kind of wild watching it again after the fourth movie.
Yeah, well, I think you're kind of right about 3.0 feels a lot more like 3.0 plus 1.0. It feels like a departure from kind of Evangelion as we knew it. Like, like we said about 3.0 plus 1.0, there's actually, some decently quiet contemplative moments in this movie, right? Moments that are just like Kaoru and Shinji, and they're like, getting to know each other, and they just kind of look up at the stars together, and Kaoru pulls the least straight face of all time as he like pulls the paint me like one of your French girl poses, right?
I think it's also 3.0 is also a great interesting movie because it's not the same as 1.0 or 2.0 where they basically rehashed the anime series.
It's like primarily new content, right?
Right, exactly.
It is the first time in the kind of reboot, I guess you could call it, that it feels like we're departing.
Yes.
Yeah. It is interesting, I will say. There is a lot of stuff in this movie that points to like lore that my brain just like I swear to God, every time I think I understand Evangelion lore, like just on its head, just the lore, there's something else comes along and I'm just like, what does any of this mean? Right? This doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And I think to some extent it's supposed to be a little bit esoteric. It's meant to be a little nonsensical. Um,
Yes, I think so too.
but like there is some stuff in this movie that is just wildly bonkers, right? Like I think people rightfully talk about how like out there Evangelion is and how hard it is to understand, and I understand why they think that, because
Oh yeah,
it's like
definitely.
I think the core of Evangelion is quite easy to understand.
Mhm.
The outer lore of it is completely incomprehensible.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, if we're just gonna talk about the sort of narrative meat of 3.0, it definitely works, right?
Mhm.
I like it a lot, and there's kind of a lot of cool thematic stuff with the music player, right? Um,
Oh, yes.
because it was so the music player is something that Shinji received from Gendo, right? And in Gendo's time it was something he used to retreat from the world, right? And for Shinji in the series and the first two movies, it operates a lot like that. And that starts to change when that music player starts to gain some significance from Rei, and in this
Mhm.
movie where
Yeah.
it doesn't work anymore, right? But it was it was one of the things that was that just came out with Shinji, right? It was recreated.
Right.
It was just inexplicably there, right? Because it means something to him, um, and it gains more meaning in this movie where you know uh he it's broken, so he can't listen to it. He can't retreat into his own kind of little world, and he learns to become um more of like a social person, right? He learns to talk to Kaoru, and they learn how to play the piano together, right? So instead of just listening to this pre-recorded music and retreating from the world, he's becoming more of a part of it, and he's able to make some music.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so it marks a point of growth with Shinji, right? And he gets frustrated. He asks Kaoru to fix it. Kaoru fixes it for him. He gets frustrated. He throws it and he breaks it again. Kaoru. You know, um, all that kind of stuff gives it a lot more meaning than when you go to 3.0 plus 1.0, where it becomes kind of that pivotal symbol of the relationship between Shinji and Gendo, where
Yeah.
Gendo was never able to overcome the sort of oppressive, protective shell of being able to shut out his surroundings, whereas
Mhm.
Shinji's entire arc over the entire narrative is about being able to grow out of it, right? And he like it becomes like a representative symbol of their collective traumas and how they deal with it, right? And then Gendo leaves in 3.0 plus 1.0. And so like I think if you just follow the trajectory of this music player as a symbol, it's kind of a really cool thing to look at,
Yeah.
especially now that we have the context of the ending, right? um
Mhm.
there's a lot of things actually that get kind of recontextualized because of the ending in a similar way. I tend to find that I like that Shinji feels like he um like is the same person he was at the end of 2.0 throughout a lot of 3.0, but it's the process of him growing as he interacts with Kaoru. Um and then it feels like he gets set back at the beginning of 3.0 plus 1.0, um, but that he eventually learns to heal again, right? And I think that's like kind of that to me feels like the central theme of 3.0, right? Is the subtitle is obviously "You cannot redo," but the "not" is in the parentheses, right? And
Mhm.
it's about doing things as many times as it takes to make it feel right, right? Which is it's like stumbling and growing and getting hurt and hurting people and retreating back into yourself, but then also like beginning that process again and being able to like grow out of it and into more of a person who's able to stand on their own. um and that works both narratively for Shinji, and it works kind of on a meta level, like a meta textual level for Anno making Evangelion, right? Like, we make jokes about how like Anno is going to keep making Evangelion until he gets it right, and it feels like with this and with 3.0 plus 1.0, he's finally getting it right. He finally feels okay with it.
Yeah, if I was Anno, I would not ever return to the series.
Oh God,
I
never,
mean? Like,
right?
it's so super done. Don't ever do anything else with it. But oh God,
I'm sure
please.
I talked about this. I'm sure I talked about this in 3.0 plus 1.0, but the thing about the characters being locked in stasis, right? About being locked in time physically, has a lot to do with the fact that as characters in a piece of media, they are perpetually trapped in that age, in that era of their lives, right? And it's they have to keep reliving it over and over again, right? And the only way for that cycle to end is to stop watching, and to stop for like Evangelion to be over, and for that story to be left there for someone else to find, right? It's a theme I find interesting, that I find interesting in Undertale, where one of the themes of that game was about the fact that you can do everything over and over and over and over and over again. You can save and reload and save and reload, and you can play through the game as many times as you want. And eventually, you might find yourself getting bored. You might do the route where you murder everybody, right? And that's a thing that they specifically call out, right? That route exists because it speaks to the nature of people playing games in an obsessive way, where so much of their personality hinges on it that they can't let it go. Whereas it was a game meant to be played and let go, right? And in many ways, Evangelion is, for Anno, a series that you are meant to consume, you're meant to absorb and think about, and then you're meant to let it go, right? Because that mirrors kind of his personal journey with depression and being a creator and creating something as big as Evangelion. So I think that's all very interesting. Yeah.
I'd say this is, for some reason, this movie is the one that I've watched the most.
That doesn't surprise me. It's the most Kaoru-centric movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really captivated by the way that they took the story and treated all, I would say, like the pacing and all the quiet moments. Even though like the end is like marks like a significant downfall, like in terms of the overall happiness of certain characters. The way that it builds to it is really very interesting.
Also, like, it's very funny going back to this movie years after like watching a lot of other sort of Anno stuff, right? And just realizing that like in every Evangelion movie, like the first like 20-30 minutes is just like it's basically just like all of the cool action stuff with like all of the kind of like tokusatsu like giant robot kind of like mech stuff. It's so nerdy.
Yeah. I like that they addressed that stuff in the beginning, and then the rest of it is like the character drama and stuff, but it just has like a little bit of well, I guess what everyone would want out of Evangelion, I think.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that like at the end of the day, it's still a series by Hideaki Anno, and he still loves his tokusatsu stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's very funny to watch this, and you kind of recognize the hallmark signs of just like a crew of people, just like it's like like hard turn to starboard, maximize the power, Captain, we can't do it, you have to do it, all that kind of stuff, right? It's a very particular kind of like how shall I say this? It's a very particular kind of sequence that like is only as detailed as it is because Anno finds it interesting and cool, and that's very obvious, right? And I mean, like,
it is exciting.
It works, right? It's cool. It's like all the kind of like the Godzilla stuff, the like the mech stuff is always really cool. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I love mech stuff, and I love cool cool moments, right? Like this movie does not serve you cool moments. There's a lot of very cool Asuka moments where she's like I'm not gonna lie, those moments where like Asuka is like piloting Unit 02 and it's like entering the like feral mode and her eyes start glowing and her teeth are really sharp. I see that every time. I'm just like, yes, please. I want more of this. I can't help it. There is a primal part of me that is just like glowing eyes and feralness. Oh baby. Give it to me.
They always do a good job of giving her like a unique look every movie, right?
I love it.
So,
yeah.
I think they gave her like the prototype look, and then this one they gave her the hat, and then the feral look.
I love that
hat.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That hat.
It's a good hat.
I noticed. I noticed the little pins on the hat, and I was like, oh, I want this. I want this hat.
It's so cute. Yeah, and then the fourth one, she's just naked with a jacket on, but like that's also symbolic for her too.
yeah. I mean, also like I don't know if you know this about me. I don't know if this is like a known character trait about me yet, but if it isn't, I'm gonna make this very clear right now. I like characters with eye patches.
Yes, you do.
Bro, if your character has one singular eye, oh baby. Like I love characters with eye patches. I love all of the characters in Genshin Impact that have eye patches. I love Asuka in the rebuilds. I love Goro Majima. Like, come on. Eye patches, they're just sexy. I don't know what it is. Just not having an eye, extremely sexy.
I don't know what it is either.
Anyway, so yeah, the kind of central theme of 3.0 is about this repetition, right? And
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense from the narrative. It makes a lot of sense from the metatextual. And it also just kind of like it just kind of feels it's a little like funny almost, right? Because it's like we're just like, how many times is like this the like end point of Evangelion, right?
What I guess one of the reasons why I'm so compelled by this movie is like it feels very, in a way, like very carefully planned and paced. And everything it feels like feeds into that theme of repetition. I think I linked this to you when we first watched it way back when. This like screen cap here. I'll link it to you again. Of Fuyutsuki's game with Shinji, where he says that Shinji's will lose in 31 moves, and then if you move forward in the film 31 minutes later,
oh my
when
god,
Kaoru's head explodes. It's when Kaoru dies right in front of him.
Bro, what the fuck?
So I think it feels like things like that, right? That make this movie so compelling.
I'm sure there's a shit ton of like weird nerdy shit like this,
yes,
where there's
right.
like stuff that Anno is just like, no one will get this.
And then some rando on Reddit is like, OMG.
Yeah, that's actually fucking incredible.
Yeah, right?
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah, right. But I think it's very cool because, I mean, again, it feeds into the theme of repetition where even Fuyutsuki knows how predetermined this outcome is going to be. Like, no matter how much Shinji tries to fight against it, he's basically telling Shinji directly, it doesn't matter what you're gonna do, how many times you repeat this, the outcome is gonna be the same.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like telling Shinji that, and he's, of course, at odds with Gendo in that respect. But they all have their parts to play, and I think he says something basically to that point within the movie, is that he played his part, and now he just has to let the cards fall where they lie. So Yep.
I also there's also like the there are a lot of quotes in this movie that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
Fuyutsuki saying that actually Fuyutsuki had some killer lines in this movie.
Yeah, he has a lot of good lines.
He says that breaking apart the world is easy, rebuilding it is not, and that the same is true for the human heart.
Yeah.
That obviously I don't even have to tell you, like that works very well. I like that Kaoru says the ties that bind will lead the way, because it like that's it, right?
Yeah.
He's like, even when I'm gone, right? Like you'll learn how to stand on your own, and you'll learn to find a place where you can be at peace, right? I think it's funny because what this movie leading into 3.0 plus 1.0 kind of does is so Neon Genesis Evangelion is a Sekai-kei, which means that the state of the world and like kind of the apocalypse as a result of that is tied directly to the mental state and relationship of the main character. Right? It's a pretty popular genre in Japan, probably as a result of Evangelion. But like the thing is that basically the world itself revolves around Shinji, right? And
Mm-hmm.
kind of like all of the things that he does and all of the mistakes that he makes reverberate out, right? And he, triggers these impacts, right? But the end of 3.0 and 3.0 plus 1.0 as in its entirety is a lot more about decoupling Shinji from the world. Not in a way where he's being removed from the world, but in the way that the world no longer revolves around him, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an interesting departure because it's basically like Kaoru basically says at the end of this movie, like, you don't have to be the main character anymore. You can find a place where you can be at peace. And he says the ties that bind will lead the way, right?
Yeah.
He says specifically, basically, that the relationships that he's made up until this point will be what guide him to that point where he is no longer at the center of the world. And I think that works in this specific metatextual context of what Sekake kind of represents, right? As like a very popular fantasy for the how do I say this? It's a very popular fantasy for the male psyche, being the
Mm.
kind of like main character and like having the world revolve around you, right? Like if you like it's up to you to save the world and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very popular with men, at least in Japan. This kind of fiction is super popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and for Anno, it feels like this kind of transition between 3.0 and 1.0 is about removing Shinji from that place, from the place where he feels
Yes.
like he all of his like the world revolves around him, and all of the pressure that comes with, right? And pulling that out and saying like it's okay, right? Like it's okay to be at peace. It's okay to just be a normal person with your everyday relationships, and the world does not have to revolve around you. In fact, it's better if the world doesn't revolve around you, right?
Yeah, I loved how they pulled Shinji out of that role and just kind of had him actually take a look at his relationships and address each one of them, and then
Yeah.
also see that the world is able to survive and carry on without his influence. Like, it'll
Mm-hmm.
keep moving on, and not everything has to be on his shoulders.
Yeah, like
And the characters reiterate that for him.
that's the thing, right? Is that like at the beginning of this movie, Shinji's like, "Let me pilot the Eva," and Misato goes,
Yeah.
"No," right?
Yeah.
It's like no, and then later Shinji gets into the Eva anyway,
Yeah.
and he basically like forces a lot of stuff to happen, even though
Yeah.
everybody is telling him not to, right? And that
Yeah.
causes more damage than if he had just done nothing about it, right? It's not just
Right.
about having to do things all the time, right? It's like sometimes it's okay to listen to other people.
Well, yeah, but I think it's also kind of like a consequence. I mean, and I think they address this better in the fourth movie, that these people relied on Shinji way too much, and
Yeah,
then
totally.
they realized the horrible consequences that created, to the point that Shinji causes the events of 3.0, due to everyone relying on him way too much in 2.0 and then also 1.0.
Yeah, totally. Like they 100% realize that putting all of that on the shoulders of a child is causing some irreparable damage and might come to bite them, right?
Yeah, it's just like the problem is that all of the resentment that they build up because of the events that happened and the mistakes that were caused, they then directed at Shinji, and so then therefore he causes the stuff in 3.0 anyway because they didn't properly address it with him. They just were like, don't do anything. Stay right there. Just put this collar on.
This is a very funny thing to talk about in regards to Evangelion, because Evangelion is one of those series that kind of basically takes like Christian mythology and then like uses it like the West uses Japanese mythology. They're just like, oh, cool. Look at this cool stuff. There's crosses and stuff. But it is extremely funny that Shinji is like this kind of like Christ-like figure that like has to deal with all the burdens of the world. And then at the end of 3.0, Kaoru becomes Jesus Christ, right? Like literally he's like, I will take this collar that represents your sin unto myself, and I will die with your sin, right?
Right.
So Kaoru basically takes all of like Shinji's sins and he's just like, I absolve you of all your sins, my child. Goodbye. Like literally Kaoru becomes Jesus Christ. If we're talking about the kind of like framing of like of the character in the narrative, like because like obviously we have to talk about it because like the entire show is steeped in the clothing of Christian mythology, right? You know, there's talk about Adam and Eve and the Dead Sea Scrolls and all of that kind of stuff, right? So it is very funny because Kaoru becomes Jesus.
Yes, he not only, I guess, quote unquote, forgives Shinji. He never really blamed Shinji in the first place, but he tries to forgive Shinji on behalf of humanity by taking on the sins that he's accumulated. But also like make sure to instill in Shinji this feeling of hope, and that hope will always persevere and it'll always exist, and tries to guide him towards it, right?
Yeah. Which is
like he's the one that tells Shinji, you know, you are the one that caused all of this, but there's a way to get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like Kaoru talks a lot about hope in this movie.
Yes.
And then in 3.0 plus 1.0, we kind of come to the conclusion that like too much hope, like hope without anything attached to it, is kind of poisonous, right? And it's interesting that you know, obviously 1.0, 2.0, Shinji knows what despair is. Shinji despairs a lot. In 3.0, Shinji learns what hope is. And then in, you know, I keep saying 4.0. It's 3.0 plus 1.0. God damn you, Evangelion.
I just say the fourth movie to make it easier.
So in 3.0 plus 1.0, they kind of rebuke both these concepts. They're just like, you know, like hope and despair are two sides of the same coin, right? And it is entirely possible to get too swept up in one or the other without being able to do anything as a result, right? And as a result, we have the third spear, right? Gaius, the spear of mankind's willpower and knowledge, right?
Yeah.
The fact that it's like not just it's not enough to have hope, it's that you have to do something about it.
Right. I think it's quite interesting that way too, that you mentioned that Shinji, you know, knows despair, and he in that sense is kind of like a representation of despair, versus on the other side of the coin, Gendo is the representation of like a hope that's a little that's like that false toxic hope, right? The one where his hope is to, you know, see his deceased wife again, even at the detriment of everything else, right? And because there's nothing of substance, no actual humanity attached to his hope, he has to reconcile the sacrifices that he's made at the end, and how Yui was there the whole time in Shinji, but he never saw it because of his false hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, somewhat unrelated, but God, I love Mari so much. She's so great. She's like not even.
I like that she's such a steady but knowledgeable facet in 3.0 and also 3.0 plus 1.0.
Well, I was gonna say like she's like pretty present throughout the movie, but like she never actually takes center stage really. Like she's there to back up Asuka like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And I gotta say I love their dynamics so much.
Yeah.
And it is my true headcanon that they get married.
They are very good.
Yeah, they've got a very good dynamic going.
Yes.
But yeah, 3.0 plus or 3.0, it's really good. And for a long time it was like the last bit of Evangelion that we had access to. So
oh my gosh, yeah.
It's kind of wild that we live in a post Evo world now, right?
And I feel like I've been waiting for 3.0 plus 1.0 for so long, and I was so eager to see it having watched 3.0, right after I watched it. I was like, oh my gosh, I need this fourth movie like now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would check on it like basically every year, like, is it are we any closer? But
yeah, I feel
now that it's finally here and it's done with and we've consumed it, I feel like it's such a nice bow on everything, and they wrapped up as much as they humanly could in one movie.
Yeah.
While trying to tie the movie together.
It is kind of an interesting it's funny because it so you know how like the middle movie of a trilogy always feels like it's set up for the next movie? This kind of feels a lot like that, and I guess in a way that makes a lot of sense because the first two movies are basically the same, right?
Yeah.
Because they're basically about the series, right? They're just recapping a lot of stuff, or like, you know, rebooting it or whatever. But I would say that I wouldn't say that 3.0 is like weak in any respect. I think it's actually one of the stronger movies.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think so too. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I've watched it so many times.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, right? Is Evangelion is about broken children being led by broken adults in a broken world, and that's
my goodness,
man. Doesn't that feel kind of hitting close to home? Oh boy, sure kind of does, doesn't it?
You know, I just realized something. Kind of slightly unrelated to 3.0, but also kind of related, is in the fourth movie, when Shinji is talking to Kaoru, I feel like, maybe I'm misquoting, but I remember him saying something along the lines of how, I think either Kaoru's betrayal or Kaoru's presence in Shinji's life was kind of like a representation of how Shinji wanted approval from his father, and therefore he kind of wanted approval from Kaoru. But 3.0 plus 1.0 Shinji shouldn't... I feel like that would be more accurate to the anime versus any of the movies, right? Because in the movie, in 3.0, their bond is quite different from the anime, right? In the anime, Kaoru betrays Shinji, and then that's why he's so hurt, because he looked up to Kaoru and I guess wanted his approval. But in 3.0, it's not like that. Kaoru doesn't really betray Shinji, he just helps him along the way and is his friend. So I'm wondering if in the fourth movie, the way that he's talking to Kaoru makes it seem more like he has the knowledge of the anime series and also the movie series, and then that's why
I think
it helps wrap up the whole entire series.
I think in some ways that might very well be true. Because it seems like it's hard to say whether this is like intentional or just kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing by Anno or whatever, or just a coincidence entirely, right? But a lot of characters speak as though they have knowledge. Specifically, Kaoru speaks a lot as if he's seen like every loop of Evangelion that has ever happened, right?
Yeah.
You know, Khara is both the first and the 13th angel. He's the beginning and the end. But yeah, I feel like when he gets introduced in the rebuilds, he's just like, yes, it's time. It's that time again. Time to go
he
do my
arises from a
Evangelion
line
stuff,
of
right?
comments. Yeah.
So there's, I would say it's not completely impossible, because like I think that Anno is at the very least aware of all of the like Evangelion timelines. Like there's the sort of manga specific stuff where Mari was friends with the with Gendo and Yui, and that stuff gets uh solidified as like movie canon in 3.0 plus 1.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it is incredibly hard to say what is what, and I think that might be part of the point, right? Is that like it's hard to pin down one canonical timeline just because like all of these are just as validly Evangelion as the others. Just sounds like something so deviously Anno-like, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a sort of merit to that. I think Toho games are sort of like this, where each one is like takes place from a different perspective, but they're all canon. There was another property that was like this that I don't quite remember what it was, but I might just be thinking about Toho again. But anyway, yeah. I'm always interested in sort of multimedia stuff and stuff that spans multiple types of media, and how those get tied together, because sometimes they do, right? Like sometimes like stuff like Eva, they do, and it's always interesting to me to see how that comes together. But that might just be because I am a weirdo, right? Like Yoko Taro's work is a lot like this, where he will just make a game, and then he'll make a stage play that explains a lot of things that people had questions about. But because it's a stage play, no one will have watched or read it until like years after the fact. And he'll put on a concert that has like narrative in it. And then like and then he'll release another game that's like the same universe, but 10,000 years later, so nothing really matters actually a lot. So, I don't know. God, I love Yoko Taro. God, he's a weird fucking guy. Anyway, yeah, I think we can just, I think we can kind of round out. I know we have not been talking about Evangelion specifically for that long, but that's not the only thing this episode is about, obviously. We spent like an hour catching up because it's been forever since we've spoken to each other. But yeah, here's our send off to Evangelion for the moment. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. Yeah, the Eva discussions will never end, but let's move sort of slightly into talking about podcast stuff, right? Because like this is technically our anniversary episode. We have been going for what is it now? 4 years? Does this mark 4 years? I believe so. That is pretty wild. A lot of things have changed in 4 years. We went from weekly to fortnightly to monthly. I swear we will not slow it down further than a month, like one episode a month.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I like one episode a month. It feels good.
It's a good pace, and with my current workload, it's just right. Kind of. We'll see. But we won't slow it down any more than that. We'll make it work. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us this far, because it is really, really, really wild to me that we've been keeping this up for like 4 years now. That is longer than I've been doing a lot of stuff, really. So, yeah. Cheers to that, I suppose, you know?
Yeah.
Do we have anything to announce? The postcards for the patrons will be going
they
out
cometh
soon-ish.
Yeah.
I don't have an exact timeline on
that. This month.
This month. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then we will get those sorted this month. And since I'm out and about anyway, I will have them mailed out as ASAP. So yeah, expect those at some point, because that's gonna be super fun. It's gonna be super exciting. And then also I don't know. I think we have some episodes planned for the beginning of this year, like 2 or 3 episodes out for the year we have planned. But then the rest of the this is exciting. The rest of the topics this year will be chosen by Renu. It's the year of Renu.
Apparently, it is.
Yeah, I mean, because like normally what happens is I come to you and I'm like, okay, Renu, we're gonna do an episode on this. Okay, we're gonna do an episode on this. But yeah, I would love for you to come with topics that you care about and force me to watch them, because normally it's the other way around.
All right, we have a little give and take.
little give and take. So this year is the year of Renu.
Wow.
What is your Chinese zodiac?
Horse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Sorry.
I actually don't know.
Not consistent with this year.
I was gonna say, like, how many more years until we hit horse, right? Like, what is it, like 4, 3, 5?
2026.
2026.
So another
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I am
in 4 years. I'll decide again.
Yeah. No, you're right. That the horse year will definitely be your year. My year was the year of the rat.
Oh.
Which was like 2-ish years ago. It's funny because I'm year of the rat, but I'm like right at the cusp of rat and ox. Because my birthday is in January, right? It's like right at the beginning of January, so like I'm right at the end of that last one,
right?
Because of the lunar calendar. I believe that Lunar New Year's on February 1st this year, or somewhere thereabouts. And if you do celebrate Lunar New Year, happy celebrations. It's an exciting time of the year. Lots of cool stuff happens for lots of people of different heritages. My family, we just resolve everything on Western New Year's. So we get up in the morning and we eat takuk, and we bow for New Year's money and that kind of stuff. So I've already settled all that stuff, right? I'm done. But if those celebrations for you are to come, and if you are able to celebrate them with your families in a safe and sanitary manner, then Godspeed. It is one of my favorite times of the year, right? Like, my uncharacteristically problematic holiday season aside, I love getting to see my family and eat some delicious rice cake soup and get money for free. It's the same season as my birthday. I will say it is very funny having 3 consecutive events where I get things because it's Christmas and then New Year's and then my birthday, except I never receive anything for my birthday, really, because I always get things for Christmas, right? So little unfortunate. But so it goes. It makes my age really easy to track, because as soon as the year turns, there's only like 2 or 3 days before I'm like, okay, now I'm the new age. Right? So I basically turn with the year. It's fun. So yeah. I think we might do like a retrospective or something on the podcast at the end of the year. Like we might, because I mean, obviously, since we have a free slot, essentially, because we have sort of finished talking about Evangelion for the moment. We might do just like an Absolute Territory podcast, 5 years in review at the end of the year. That might be fun.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Like half a decade. Actually,
really
that's kind of nuts, right?
Yeah, that's super wild.
Well, it's a little stressful too.
We didn't do this year is we pick our favorite anime of the year.
Yeah, so that's do you have favorite anime of the year off the top of your head?
I think let me think about it for a second.
Because like this year was fucking wild.
It was really wild, and I'm like very quickly skimming through the anime lists of this year. I think
just the wrap-ups.
If I were to pick 2, right? Because 2 stick out to me immediately. One is Odd Taxi.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other is Osama Ranking. I love those two.
I
Particularly.
I agree. I would
Yeah.
easily say that Odd Taxi was probably one of the best things that I think one of the best series that aired all year in 2021, which is super impressive given all of the really good stuff that came out in 2021. And I would say that Osama ranking is easily on par with Odd Taxi, if not greater. But at the same time, it's not completely done wrapping this year, so I wouldn't necessarily count it as simply this year.
That's true. Yeah.
Also, and this is a pain in the ass, but we do have to wait until the show is over to actually properly rank it, or else we get into a weird Wonder Egg priority territory.
You're right. Maybe I'll hold off. I'll say Odd Taxi then to just be safe because we haven't finished.
I honestly think that Odd Taxi easily is like the best thing that I watched last year. But I will say if we're going for top 3, I would say Odd Taxi was really good. To Your Eternity was really, really solid. And there was one more that I really liked. Oh, Skate the Infinity. I really liked Skate the Infinity.
That was gonna be my other one too. Skate the Infinity.
Like if I had to choose 3 shows from 2021 that I really liked, in no particular order, it would be those 3. Yeah, those 3 stand out to me for sure. I know we didn't do this last year, which is kind of sad. I don't remember what came out last year, but I'm pretty sure some pretty good stuff came out last year. But we didn't do a wrap up just because like it was easier to do a end of year wrap up when we were doing weekly episodes, right? Because then you don't overload so much stuff on just the last monthly episode, and you end up with like a 4-hour long episode where you talk about all the stuff you've been up to over the holidays, which is usually a lot, and then talk about the show itself or Eva, and then that's like 90 minutes, and then you talk about all of the anime that you watched, which is like another like 2 hours, right? So I don't know if it was more of a spectacle, I guess. Like if the podcast were a big podcast, we might put on some like end of the year like stream content or something. But honestly, we might actually even be able to do that at the end of this year. That might be fun, actually. That
would be fun.
We might actually try to plan for like a New Year's stream or something. That would be. I would like that a lot.
Yeah, we could stream it and then we'll post the audio of the VOD or whatever on.
Yeah, no editing, please God, no editing. Or minimal editing. Oh, please God. New Year's streams are always super fun to me.
They are fun.
And normally I'm busy during New Year's, but
we can find a day that's not specifically on the holiday.
Not specifically on New Year's, but like I mean, to be fair, the last 2 New Year's I've been somewhat of a wash just because you know why. If you think that the pandemic is going to be under control by the end of next year, that's quite optimistic, and I can't begrudge you for that because I too hope that it will be under control by then. So yeah, I think that that about wraps it up, right? I think for the year. I mean, I know this episode is going up in January, decidedly after the year has ended. It would have been ideal if it went up before the year ended, but what can you do, right? Hopefully 2022 is kinder to us. Hopefully. Please God, hopefully.
It'll be all right.
It'll be all right.
There's always hope, Soupy.
There's always hope. We'll make it through together, and if not, we'll just invent giant flesh robots to solve all our problems. Which, you know what? Doesn't sound too bad, actually. Bring on the Evangelions.
Put the fate of the world on these teenagers who had to grow up in the year of the pandemic.
I was gonna say, we're kind of already doing that, right?
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, this may permanently alter your body forever, but the economy needs to keep going.
No.
So, yep. Yeah. Well, you will be seeing much more of us in 2022. Certainly, we have lots of episodes planned for you.
Yay!
And I'm excited. You know, we're going into year 5. And like, we're not a huge podcast, but we really appreciate all the people who do listen. Like, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. The fact that more than on each episode, we get more than 4 views is boggling to me.
It is crazy to me too, and I'm happy about that. That there's actually people who enjoy our podcast and like to engage in discussion with us about these kinds of things. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, honestly, the fact that we okay, so we can divulge this a little bit. We average about 30 to 40 listens per episode, and that's crazy to me.
That is wow, that's crazy. Oh my god, I didn't know it was that much.
That's actually incredible. I'm really thankful for that. I will say, I do want to go back and remaster the first couple episodes because I think the audio on them is not ideal, and they I think I don't want people to listen to the first episode and then just be put off the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because the audio quality is so
not
great, but obviously that's just a thing that I just have never had time for, really, or when I have had time for, I need to spend that time doing other things. You know how it is. You know how doing things is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, if you're listening to this, if you made it to the end of this episode, you have my big gratitude. Not my small gratitude, it's my big one.
The big one.
Because I really do appreciate it, right? I wouldn't be continuing to make this podcast if no one was listening, I think. I don't know, maybe we would be, actually. But that, nevertheless, your listens mean a lot to us. They really, really do. And thank you so much for being on this journey with us, because it's been a rough couple years, and the podcast has existed. At this point, half of the podcast has existed in pandemic time, which is just wild to me, right?
We persevere.
We are persevering, and we are doing our best. So, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
And thank you to our patrons subscribed to us
Yay.
on Patreon. Thank you so much
thank
to
you.
Evan Williams, Magpie Mirtesk, Claire, Frostfall, Shondao, Cherubel, Dylan Boats, and Undead and Canny. Thank you so much for the support. We really, really do appreciate it. It would be very difficult to be subscribed to all these stupid subscription platforms without your support.
Yes.
And you're all very generous, and I really do appreciate you.
Extremely.
Even a $1 a month would be amazing, but a lot of you are doing a lot more than that, and thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that really means a lot. And look forward to your postcards, because they will be coming.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I believe at the beginning of last year we reduced the tier for postcards to $5 a month.
Ooh, awesome.
So more people will be getting postcards, which is nice, actually, because
I
think the postcards are super fun.
I do want to be able to send them out to more people, because I think it's just a nice little thank you thing.
Yeah, nice little thank you thing. I like it. I have the other postcards somewhere. I think they're in a box somewhere. But I love it. I love having a little physical artifact of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't really have anything for the first year, but the second year onwards, we've had the postcard, and that's really meant a lot. So yeah, I hope here's to a lot of years of postcards, because I think those are pretty fun. Yeah, well, it is also just one of the things that we can do that flexes your art muscles.
Yeah, something aside from I guess the videos and stuff is I like being able to make these postcards and send them out to everyone.
They're cute. They're cute. They're coming out soon-ish. If I remember, I'll put a Patreon update when I send them out. But yeah, expect those within the month. But yeah.
Yes. If you guys are listening, make sure that your addresses on Patreon are updated. because we'll be using those to
Yes.
send them to you. If you want to like make sure your name and your addresses are updated so that we can mail them to you, or if you have a different mailing address that you want us to send them to, just send either me or Soupy a private message, and we will get that sorted out for you.
Yeah, send me a message, and I'll get you them postcards on the down low.
Yeah, because I'll be sending them to Soupy, and then Soupy will be sending them out. So yeah.
Yep. That way we can both write little messages. Just
we
for
want
you.
to write stuff to you. Yeah.
All right. Well, I believe that is kind of the end of talking about podcast stuff. So
Woo!
Who are you, and where can we find you on the internet?
Whoa! I am Renu, also known as Swan. You can find me on the internet at Swandron on Twitter, Tumblr, Twitch, even Facebook. And you can find me on Instagram at swan.drawn. I am working on the postcard and also some other podcast-related stuff. And on stream, I am about to wrap up Resident Evil 1 Remake. I'm apparently very close to the end, which I'm so excited for. This game has been terrifying, but also really fun. So, it's one of those things where it's like, oh god, I know I'm about to go play another scary part, but also I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, so if you want to watch me do a scary screaming finale, that will definitely happen next Friday. I think we'll hopefully I won't play the game so slowly that we won't be able to finish it, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
And what about you?
You can find me all the places at Literal Soup. I am on Twitch and Twitter. And I'm on Patreon. If you're still subscribed to my Patreon, I'm so sorry for not having anything for you. I've started some writing projects. They're currently on hold because I just don't have time because I'm working on a lot of freelance stuff right now. But But yeah, so I'm going to be I'm actually going to be streaming. I've started a new streaming series, which is where my friends and I rank the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition subclasses. So we go through each of the subclasses and we talk about like what makes this class good, what makes this class bad, how it sits in relation to the other classes within that class. We've already done barbarians. And we've ranked all the barbarians. It's pretty balanced all the way through, which is to say that there's like pretty equal amounts in each tier, but some worse than others. And next we're doing bards. And I don't know when this episode is going to be coming out, but the streams take place at 12 p.m. Pacific time, because that's where I'm situated. So the episode may be out by the time, but probably by the time you're listening to this, it will have already been streamed. So just so you know about that, it's usually on Sundays. But yeah, that's just where we're at.
Do you upload the VODs on your YouTube channel like you do the
Yes
our Ace Attorney stuff? Okay, then
so...
yeah, I guess if you guys aren't able to make Soupy's stream, then you can always find it on their YouTube channel at Literal Soup.
Yeah, you can find me at Literal actually, so right now my channel is currently the Literal Soup Stream Archive.
Oh, you changed it.
I changed it just because it's not like I'm making like videos, right? I'm just putting the VODs up.
True.
But if you want to go, I've actually gone through and I've put chapters into the YouTube VOD, so you can actually skip through it if you want to.
Wow, that's nice.
I don't know why you want to. Don't you want to know why Berserker is a bad barbarian?
How dare you?
Yeah.
I must click to find out.
Yeah. Find out. Number 6 will surprise you.
Stop.
So yeah, that's what I'm up to. I promise
Okay.
I'm working on stuff all the time, always. That's just how it be. I've just needed
Yes.
I've just needed a little bit of time to rest because my holiday season has been more stressful than I anticipated. But anyway, yeah, thanks so much for supporting me and stuff. I like when people look at the things I make. Above all else, having money is nice because being alive is nice.
Sure.
But the creative fulfillment comes as a close second, I would say. Like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's like food and water is like at the top. And anyway, so I suppose that's it then. I suppose we will see you in a bit for another episode. Whether or not that is the sampler that I really, 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 really need to get done, or whether it's the January episode or whatever. I hope you tune in, and I hope you keep tuning in. And we will see you next time.
See you next time.
さようなら。また明日ね。